No intro. No intro music. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Barry Botone with the Tribal Opioid Response. I'm here with 3 guests today that we are going to get into the business of what it takes for us to do our jobs to help people recover. Would you like to go around the room and explain to the people who we are and what we do?
So I am Darian Chabata. I'm the TOR project director. We started about 3 years ago from the ground up. So everybody here has been here pretty much since the beginning. So I'm thankful for all of them and thankful for the work they do.
All right. I'm Domingo Whiteman. I'm with the TOR Prevention and Admin. It's been very, very good experience. Like I said, we start from the ground up, and everything we've been doing, just trying to get out there and get to the tribal communities. We got 9 counties, got a lot of tribal members everywhere, and just show them what recovery and outside resources that we can provide, that we can help them provide for them. They can make on their journey.
I'm Cassandra Frazier. I'm the peer support specialist and case lead. So what I do is I work with individuals seeking recovery, seeking some sort of help in finding them resources. I do a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of over-the-phone interviews, assessments, and help them get into treatment and find aftercare services.
And once again, I'm Barry Botone. I'm a peer recovery support specialist. I also do a lot of one-on-ones, over-the-phone assessments, and we help people. We're basically hope dealers. I mean, we go out into the communities. We get our name out there as to people that you can lean on that want to see you get on your journey towards recovery. Would you also like to explain what else we do?
Yeah, so a variety of our services are harm reduction focused and prevention focused. So this is us getting out into the communities, meeting people where they're at. So whether that's in their use stage of addiction to where they're actively using, we still want to show that we care for them and provide them with supplies to help reduce risk of dying or suffering from any other diseases. And so that'll be through Narcan, fentanyl test kits, sterile needles, pretty much anything that'll help them stay alive until they're ready for their recovery journey. And so through this, we actually meet a lot of our future clients by providing them that care that they need, even when they think that they aren't deserving of the care. And this is just us showing that your life matters, and we care about you when you're suffering. We're going to care about you when you're in recovery. And we hope that your family members will see that recovery is contagious and then hopefully start to want to change their own life for the better, to where they're going to start living a clean and sober life. Some other services we provide is talking circles. So that's more of a community approach, peer approach to healing through pretty much Native American ways. Every week we provide that every week, and then that will kind of open the door to like figuring out your own trauma, your own triggers, and then help identifying how you can navigate those and overcome those wounds, pretty much. And that's one way that it helps with recovery.
Thank you, Darian. Cassandra, what if a person calls you, and can you explain the process of kind of what you go through as to where you begin this person's journey, as to if they're unsure of what they want to do or how to go about this? Like, what do you do to help them explain to the people like what it is that you say or do, or work your magic?
Work my magic. Well, basically, I just put myself in their shoes because I've been there before. I'm in recovery myself. I've been clean for almost 5 years from the needle, opioids, meth, and heroin and whatnot. But so I just get on a level with them to let them know that they're not alone, to meet them right where they're at. I ask them a series of questions, if what they're seeking, what kind of help they want, because not everybody's ready for it, whenever they call. But if you can plant that seed and let them know, like, hey, I've been there before. Like, I know where you're at. Then it's a lot easier to get through to them, because maybe the next time they call, they're going to be ready to get some sort of help.
Yes, for sure. You know, when I get that call, you know, which it never bothers me. Like, you know, when a person calls, you know, you just kind of understand that not everybody's the same. Not everybody is looking for the same thing. But I mean, like she said, if as long as the seed is planted, then I feel like that's taken one step closer to, you know, actually figuring out what it's going to take for this person to find recovery. So, you know, I love the fact that we can, you know, get our feet on the ground and our feet are moving and we are, you know, trying to impact lives as much as we can, because, you know, it's definitely nothing easy, and there's definitely a stigma around people trying to find recovery. You know, like she said, I've been there too. You know, I've been sober 895 days today, and you know that's 2 years, 5 months, and 12 days. My sober date is May 4th, 2021. So I mean, I feel like I'm a spiritual toddler in like this journey, because, you know, after finding this new life, you know, I'm just now learning things that I probably should have learned, you know, decades ago, you know, but, you know, I'm here and I'm doing it, you know, and we just want to encourage anybody out there, you know, that is questioning, you know, their lifestyle, the way that, you know, their life is heading. You know, I understand it's not an easy thing, and it's not something that isn't impossible. I mean, I feel like I've received this miracle, and I just want to pass this on to the next person. So, Domingo, would you like to read the Elder's Meditation for today?
Yes. Today's Elder Meditation for the day, October 16. It's from Horace Axtell, Nez Pierce. He said, "Many religions have been brought to this land, and the way my religion is, they teach me, and they taught me, and told me to respect all religions, and I still do that. And then the Creator put on this earth many different religions which represent different roads to walk to God. All religions are right and good if the path is the path to God. Should we be judging which road is better or worse than the other? When we accept each other's way, we can stand in a circle, hold hands, and listen to each other as we pray to God. Let us be more accepting of the religions of others. Great Spirit, God, Grandfather, Grandmother, Lord, let me know peace."
You know, I believe that all the way. You know, I understand when you get into recovery, you know, the meetings that I go to, it's not about religion. You know, it's more of a spiritual thing. You know, if when you get into religion, you know, that kind of gets you off of, you know, the whole purpose of understanding these sayings, understanding, you know, the different walks of life that, you know, everyone's surrounded by. So for me to say that my religion is the right way, you know, kind of puts a border around what I believe in, you know, and from my experience, you know, if I don't respect anybody else's religion, then why would I expect them to respect mine? You know, so I completely feel that, you know, all the way. You can't put borders around what you believe in. And would you like to share more on that?
Well, yeah. And so, like, I think religion causes division, you know. So when we focus on religion, just like recovery, not every way is gonna not everything that worked for me is gonna work for him. Not everything that worked for me is gonna work for you, or for you vice versa, you know. And so there's all these other outlets, all these other roads that we can take. But what works for you is what works for you, and it just like what you value, what you know, prioritize. That's what's gonna keep you. And to me, it's all about relationship. Like, the way you love yourself is the way you can love others. And so whenever I read this, like, we have to love each other. Like, we have to come together. And so when we start focusing on this is better than yours, or this is better than yours, you know, there's a gap, and so yeah, it's just
That's good. That's good. Also, I like to add that, in the Cheyenne language, Mahio, the it means I just blinked out. My
all right.
bad.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah, it'll come back.
It'll come back.
Cut that out.
It means something.
It means something.
I think a big part of it is, really loving yourself, appreciating yourself, and then like Maheo, just talking to him and loving him, speaking to him, and then loving yourself, and then then move on to the next.
Okay, it came back to me.
Okay.
Maheo means the great mystery. Because, to me, that makes perfect sense. Who is anybody to tell me what God is? He comes in many forms. He may work through Cassandra. He may work through you. He may, he comes to me in different ways, so I believe that wholeheartedly that, he is the great mystery. Who can put a label on what God is? So, whether it doesn't matter what religion, I've just learned that through my process, as long as it's a God that has forgiveness, because that's a big part of me staying sober is me being able to forgive myself and others. So I guess I'm going to go into my story now as to what brought me on this journey and how I ended up working with this crazy group of people. So, I'm Barry Botone. I am from Western Oklahoma. I was born and raised in this very small community. We call it God's country, but you can call it Thomas, Oklahoma. Very humble beginnings. Was born into a family of 6. I have 4 brothers and a sister. My mom was always a single mother. We lived in my grandma's house. Basically, if you could picture that scene in your head, we're like any other family. We don't know nothing about being stepbrothers or any of that. That's my family. That's who I consider my closest people in my life. So. Come from a family, of, I feel like they're pretty good people. Not to say that, there was really a bad thing that happened to me. Of course, I received an injury that impacted my life whenever I was a kid. It wasn't until I moved to El Reno that was kind of the beginning of my demise, I guess you could say. I moved to El Reno with my dad. I'm my dad's only child. I was probably about 13, and I went to Darlington. I graduated here at the 8th grade. Went my last part of my 8th grade year here. And by that time, I had already getting in trouble in Thomas. I want to say I was I was pretty young. I was pouring alcohol on alcoholism very young, and got on all my experience in Thomas before I even left Thomas, and moved to El Reno, and it was just on a such larger scale. Whenever I got over here. I found the places that I could go and do whatever I wanted, and nobody would bat an eye as to what I was doing. We watched all the grown-ups, do what they, everybody drank. You drank no matter what. You drank if you were having a bad day. You drank if you were having a good day. It just, began and ended with alcohol. That's how I seen life going here in El Reno. And I embraced it. I love the feeling that it brought to me. Having the kind of injury that I had, dealing with, the kind of trauma that I've already had in my life, that I didn't know how to deal with. I didn't know how to talk to anybody. There was nobody that I could talk to. I didn't have nobody I didn't feel like too many people were worried about what Barry was doing. So I took full advantage of that. I found these places I could do whatever I wanted and act like an adult. Well, what I thought was acting like an adult. And, about that time, my dad got sober. He sobered up. He was trying to get his life together. And it was kind of like maybe out of resentment that I, after dealing with him my whole life, I felt like I used that as a weapon towards my dad. When I wanted to hurt my dad, that's what I would do, is I would go get drunk and high or whatever, So, a good part of my life, I could say went towards that same exact feeling. You do forget every feeling that you've ever had. You do want to numb all the pain that you've been through. And yes, I was addicted to drugs and alcohol, but at the same time, I was addicted to the way that I handled my problems. And, all these are just symptoms of what's going on inside my head. Because, I didn't think nobody in this world knew what Barry was going through. And I didn't think nobody could ever realize, how much pain and suffering I actually went through when, I just felt like everybody kind of felt sorry for me all the time. And it just kind of, I took advantage of that, people that wanted to help me, and then there was also people that felt sorry for me. Those were the easiest victims, people that felt sorry for me, like, oh, he's blind in one eye, it's going to ruin his life. They counted me out, so those are the kind of people I gravitated towards to take full advantage of what was going on with me. So, very young, I learned that I liked the feeling of alcohol. And, the marijuana was just part of it, and, I just found a way to make it seem cool, or make it seem like I was living the life, because I could go to the liquor store, I could buy my own alcohol, I could go to the weed man, I could, I just felt like I was on a whole different level than anybody else my age, because I had all these connections to lose my mind, So as time went on, I got in more and more trouble. Whenever I was about 15 years old, we got in trouble. Me and a couple of my friends, we all went to jail in Kettle County. And out of that, one of my friends goes to prison. He's 15 years old. He goes to prison. And that wasn't enough. Maybe a few months later, me and my friends get in trouble for a drive-by in Oklahoma City. And from that, I ended up going to Oklahoma Department of Corrections, 16 years old. I mean, and what kid belongs in prison? It just, I thought my life was over. I thought, I'm a felon. There's nothing left for me in this world. I kind of felt like things were over with. So, I got on this pity party, and I get out when I'm 17, and I just go right back to what I was doing that got me in jail. So, it didn't stop there. Then my alcoholism really picked up. My drug use really picked up. And I didn't see at the time. I thought it was cool because I'm a kid. I'm I'm doing what's fun. I'm doing what makes me happy. I'm doing like what everybody else is doing, but on a larger scale. Like I'm a level above everybody because no one gets as drunk as Barry. Nobody gets as high as Barry. I felt like I was the guy that knew how to party the hardest. And nobody was having as much fun as me. Well, before you know it, I'm having kids. And that kind of got my feet on the ground. But at the same time, that just added more stress. It just added more responsibility to a kid that had no idea what he was doing. But I can say that I was trying. I got me a job. I got off the streets. I got me a job. I started trying to raise my family. But at the same time, I have this disease that every time I turn around, it needs attention. It needs my money. It needs my time. It needs everything that I have to make sure that I'm taking care of this disease. Like the only way that I can think of it is a sickness. I mean, it's from the time I wake up. It's begging for my attention. It needs me to make a way for it because just living life isn't enough. Just me being able to get up and go to work and remain employable, it isn't enough for me. I'm not having enough fun because, the wild side of me, is screaming like, okay, you work 40 hours this week. You deserve the whole weekend off. Like I just would completely check out. Like I was gone. Like nobody would know where I was at. And I'm just, 3 sheets to the wind somewhere. Not just overnight, for days, and I kept having kids. My kids are like stair steps. My first 5, they're like all like a year apart from each other. But I can say that I was a dad, and I was trying, and before you know it, me and their mother split up. And then I'm off and running. There's no reason for me to be at home. There's no reason for me to even have a home. She's not. We're not getting along at all. And it was just another reason for me to feed my disease. And before you know it, I find myself, with legal problems. Every time I'm getting drunk now, I'm ending up in jail, and like they say, every time I get drunk, I break out in handcuffs. Just it became a normal thing for me. So then, I get introduced to cocaine, which I hit the ground running. You wouldn't have thought. You wouldn't have thought, that I had any problems realizing that I love this stuff. And that's about the time that meth was a big thing in Oklahoma. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, meth was really taking off. And of course, you're in the cocaine game. Everybody that was into cocaine started doing meth because it's cheaper. You can make it here in Oklahoma, and everybody has it. It just kind of took over. And, I remember being 19 years old and I tried it. No, I think I was about 20. Yeah, I was about 20 years old. I tried it. And what do you know? I loved it. You know, like you don't have to do as much. You can, you know, like it's just this whole like lifestyle change, and before you know it, I am strung out. I'm like definitely having trouble, struggling. I mean, all the way until like my 30s, I'm struggling with meth. And, you know, I'm thinking, you know, oh, I'm only gonna ever just smoke it. You know, if you get on the needle, you're like you're fiend out. You know, you're at the bottom of the barrel if you get on the needle, and you know you can't control this thing. Oh, I'm a hustler. You know, that's all I do is I sell it. You know, and before you know it, you become your best customer. You know, like I know I owe myself a lot of money. You know, I mean, there's no other way to say that.
Get that
You know,
change.
you become so oblivious to the obvious about what's happening because your disease demands that much attention. Before you know it, you know, I had my kids. You know, we had an apartment, had 2 cars. Uh, had me a little car on some 20-inch spokes. You know, I thought I was doing it. Well, then, me and my girlfriend split up. I moved to a 2-story house, and you know, I had 2 jobs. You know, I thought I was doing it. But at the same time, you know, I'm still drinking. I'm not. I lay off the hard stuff for a little while. You know, I'm not drinking liquor. I'm trying to stay off of drugs. I moved to this 2-story house, and then it just like out of nowhere, people, places, and things, man. I let the wrong people come around, and before you know it, I lost my job. I lost my cars. I'm selling everything. Um, I had the bright idea that maybe I should quit my job to sell drugs full time. You know, like that's how, you know, you become a slave to this thing. You know, it owns you, you know, and I gave everything to my addiction. You know, and it wasn't pretty, you know, my kids, you know, I had all 4 of my kids there with me. You know, and I had a 2-story house, so they would be upstairs and I'm downstairs. They weren't even allowed to come downstairs because of what was going on down there. You know, it was like, I can't even imagine what it was like for them. You know, it was like, I can't even imagine the trauma, the effect that it had on them to this day because, you know, I still find myself, you know, trying to make it up to them. You know, I know they ain't never forgot. They don't just like hold it against me and throw it in my face every chance they get. But I mean, if you just talk to them, they know what's up. And you know, it's hard to forgive myself for those types of things. But you know, as time went on, you know, of course, I lost my place. I had to give my kids back to their mother, which was, you know, real tough for me to do because, you know, she has the same sickness that I do. You know, and that was probably, you know, and I really beat myself up for that because, you know, I all these promises that I made to them, you know, my addiction came first. I forgot to leave that part out of all the promises that I made to my kids is that I promised my addiction that it needed my full attention. So, you know, as time went on, you know, I got further and further and further out there. Like I said, I gave my addiction everything. And it wasn't long, you know, in July 22nd of 2016, my son took his own life. And, you know, a parent's worst nightmare. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you the process of having to go through that because, I mean, all I learned was that there's nothing in this world nobody can ever say to you to make you feel better. And it never, at first, it seemed like it never got better because my son, you know, you replay the situation over and over and over and over, but it's always the same result. And, you know, it, to this day, it still affects me, you know, every day, you know, I mean, I've come to a point now where I understand that, you know, I'll never be whole again. But it's just now, since I've been sober this time, that I realize, you know, that it's okay to not be okay. You know, I love my son. I miss him every day, you know, but at the time, you know, I thought I was bad on drugs and alcohol before that. But after that, I definitely took it to a whole nother level. It didn't matter what drug it was. I was trying to kill this pain that I could not get over with. And what I found was there isn't a substance in this world, there isn't a drink in this world that can make that pain better. You know, it's just definitely a process that by trying to use those substances, I definitely slowed that part of my healing down. Because you're not trying to feel this pain, you know, because you're just constantly crying. You're just constantly, like, I thought for sure I was not going to live that long because I miss my son that bad. You know, it's just like nothing that I would ever wish on anybody in this world, you know, and you know, before you know it, you know, I'm on the needle. Before you know it, I'm drinking vodka every day. Before you know it, you know, I'm the coolest 16-year-old that you will ever meet in your life. You know, that's what I kept reverting back to was, you know, I'm hanging out. By then, I'm 36 years old. I'm hanging out with people half my age and just being the coolest guy ever. The coolest uncle you would ever have in your life, you know? Like, I mean, there were no boundaries as to what I would do, you know. And I did try to get sober after a few months after my son passed away. Because I'm telling myself, I don't want his death to be in vain. Because I kind of understood in a way of what I felt like it was about. You know, me and his mom are strung out. No one's there for him. You know, well, I'm telling myself, well, with my daughters, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be that person that he wanted me to be for them. Because a good friend told me, you know, whenever all that was going on with my son, my friend, he was like, you know, God wants you closer. I didn't understand what that meant. But out of everything that everybody said to me during my son's funeral, during the whole process, nothing made sense to me. There's nothing nobody could say that would make me feel better. You know, most people were like, I don't even know what to say. You know, like, what do you say to a parent that's lost a kid? You know, what comes to mind? There's nothing nobody can say or nothing anybody can do. You know, they try, and that does make you feel better. I mean, because it was definitely this community that lifted me up and helped me through that, you know, because you feel like everybody that comes up and hugs you and tells you different things, you know, you feel like they carry that burden of pain with you. So, I mean, I am thankful for everybody that was there for me, for sure. But, you know, what stuck with me the most was when my friend told me that God wants you closer. And I didn't understand that. You know, I didn't understand what that meant. Because I didn't give myself a chance. You know, I kept the drugs and alcohol going. You know, I'm supposed to be a hustler, you know, and I kept a dope sack on me because that was the thing that was hard to find. So I always had a place to stay. I always had somewhere to go lay my head and somewhere to eat. as long as I could provide drugs, people wanted me around. And, when you don't, it's a cold world. And I would rather give people money than give people drugs, because that was my livelihood. That's what kept me going. So, I tried, I tried to get sober. I tried my best. But I didn't do it for me. Kind of like the situation I was in at the time. I didn't do it for I didn't do it for Barry. I didn't do it for my kids. I tried to get sober for my kids before. That only lasts so long, because if they were, you would think that your kids are that important to you. But you put these substances into your life and nothing means anything to you because your disease needs that much attention. It needs that much focus for it to be able to keep going in your life. It's like all these bad spirits and all these bad things, like they will consume your life and they will find a way to make you forget about everything that you love. And, I wish I could say that, okay, my kids were that important, or I did love this person, or I did love that person, but that wasn't my case. My disease needed everything and more. It wanted more and more and more. The more I thought I gave it, the more and more that it wanted. So, I did try to get sober. I tried to go to meetings. I felt completely out of place. I didn't want to hear anything. These people were talking about, they kind of made me feel like if I wasn't a Christian, then I didn't belong there. But that was me finding a way to put barriers between what they were doing and what I thought was right. Like I said, putting borders around what you believe. And so I found an excuse not to be there. And that was probably, I did it on self-will. I did it on self-will for about close to 3 years. And whenever things didn't work out in that situation, the moment I left out of that situation, I walked straight to the dope man's house. And I was off and running. I was right back to where I promised myself I would never be again. And it all went straight down the drain again. I mean, it wasn't long. I'm homeless, strung out. I could wake up in the morning and promise myself I'm not going to do drugs today. I'm not going to drink. I promise. Somewhere throughout the day, this obsession would take over my mind. And when I say an obsession, bro, like, spending half of my life chasing drugs and alcohol, you come out of that with an obsession that cannot be explained. It cannot be. Nothing else compares to having this obsession with these substances. I mean, I tried. I would pray. I would do anything that I could to try to avoid getting high and drunk. But somehow along the way, I have this disease that wants me dead. And I would end up right back at the bottom of a bottle or chasing a sack. And I never thought twice about it. I mean, if I woke up sober, I would try my best to go as long as I could, and I would promise myself, I'm not going to do these things today. But then a person would text me or somebody would call me. You want to smoke? And I'm all of that was out the window. I'm off and running. And I would go do work for people, and it would be for, man, next to nothing. And then just one day, like I think it had to do with the way I prayed. The way that I talked to God, because during this time I'm talking to God like he's Santa Claus. I'm sitting in the back of a police car, and I remember the only way that I'm gonna get out of jail, and it wasn't because I'm gonna go do right, it's because I knew I was gonna have to sober up the whole time I'm in jail. And I'm dreading that. So I'm like, please let there be a clerical error in my warrant. Like, this is my prayer. Like, because there's no other way I'm getting out of this. These are the prayers that I used to say. They call them foxhole prayers, because there's no other way out of it. Like, man. Well, one day I finally just got honest with myself about my situation. I just remember sitting there high, drunk, sitting at this creek in El Reno by this train bridge, hiding under this blanket because I'm so ashamed of what I'm doing. I'm so ashamed of who I've become. I just remember thinking to myself, like, this cannot be life. Like, I feel like I'm withering away. I was skin and bones. And I felt like I was withering away. Like, I'm thinking, like, if you just want me dead, then just take me. Like, why are you doing this to me? Why? I've suffered enough through most of my life. I've never been happy. I've never got what I wanted. I've tried to do everything that I felt like you wanted me to do. And then I realized that one thing that I never did do was I never did surrender to his will. And I would have to say that came a little bit later after realizing that. But I know that my prayers changed. And one day I seen my little sister, Mary Bo. And, when you see somebody that you care about and you just know something's wrong, you just have that intuition that, man, something ain't right. I'm pretty sure she looked at me just all skin and bones and was like, hey, brother, I'm fixing to go to rehab. I think you should give this guy a call. Which I didn't know at the time, but that was probably the biggest blessing that anybody could have given me at that time. And that's all she had to say. It was like, it's all free. You just got to fill out a little bit of this paperwork. Everything's over the phone. Give this guy a call. So she gave me the number. I remember I kept it in my pocket. I think I was on my way to, like, go mow a lawn or something for some peanuts, and I just remember waking up the next day, looking at this number, and I called it. And for once in my life, I was finally honest. This guy gets on the phone. Hey, my sister said that you can help me get to California. I'd really like to give that a try, and he was like, well, he started speaking this weird language to me. What's your drug of choice? And I was just like, he was like, yeah, what's your DLC? And I was like, meth? Like, he's like, all right, cool. Like, well, that, we get that a lot. You're from Oklahoma, so, that's usually part of everyone else's problem. So what else do you do? I was like, well, I love to drink, And it's like, once I said it, then it kind of felt like a lot of pressure was just came off of me. Just being able to admit that I do have a problem. I mean, just that relief right there. I mean, it made me feel a whole lot better. Even if I didn't go to rehab after that. That relief of being able to admit, you know, like, here I am, skin and bones, you know. And I'm like, no, I don't have a problem. About to blow away, you know. And you know, he hooked me up with this guy for insurance. He emailed me a paper. I had to fill out this financial report, which all I said is I mow lawns. And sent it back. Got my insurance card in the paper. I called the guy back. Big shout out to Justin. Yeah. Called the guy back. And he's like, do you want to fly to Ontario, California in 2 days? I was like, I guess. You know, I've never even heard of the place, you know, but yeah, I'll go. You know, if that's where people are going for rehab. And yeah, that was definitely the beginning of my journey, you know. And I would have to say, I go to Pacific Manor in Riverside, California, to a detox, and it's a co-ed detox. It's a motel that they turned into a detox, and they closed it off. So I would have to say that I was there with a great group of people that I still consider my friends to this day. You know, being told that, you know, I'm not sure if they always say this thing. I kind of feel like they do. But they were like, y'all's the best group of people that we've had in here in a long time. And it was out of that positive momentum that I built up there. I wasn't afraid to talk. I wasn't afraid to explain, you know, to people, you know, how I ended up there. And what I ended up realizing is that it was my choices that got me to that point in my life. You know, when I want to do things Barry's way, that's how I get in trouble. You know, when I realized that Barry has the best answer for what's going on, that's when I get in trouble. You know, I realized a lot of things there. But that May 4th came around. I left on the 3rd, and I wake up there on the 4th. Because, you know, before I got on the plane, I had to smoke a big fatty, you know, like I already had everything in my system before that. So, you know, I had to take UA when I got there, and, you know, I was positive for meth, heroin, and weed, and, you know, so May 4th was my sober date. Well, then, you know, I was ready. You know, I realized I was ready when I got there, the way I was honest. For once, I could be honest with other addicts, you know. And what kind of binds us together is the pain that we've all put ourselves through. You know, that's why it's so easy for me to sit here and have a conversation with Cassandra, because she understands that pain. You know, or, you know, go to an AA meeting and pour my heart out, because everybody in that room understands the pain that I'm talking about. I mean, not from other people, but from what we've put ourselves through. So, you know, I ended up going to this great program called Dream Recovery. And, you know, here I am, you know, 895 days later, and I still talk to them people like all the time. You know, when something great happens in my life, those are the people that I reach out to and let them know, like, hey, check us out. You know, we just got a Narcan vending machine in our casino. You know what I mean? Like, these are the people that I want to impress, as to where it was the the dope man before, you know, like look what I stole. You know? So you know, today I am very blessed. I had it in my head when I left that I didn't know one person from my tribe that I could call and let them know that I wanted to find some kind of recovery. So to be able to come back to our tribe and be one of these people that people can reach out to and help them realize that this thing is definitely possible, because I understand the hopelessness sets in early. I understand that you don't give yourself a lot of options whenever drugs and alcohol are involved. And today I can definitely say I let Mahale do for me what I couldn't do for myself. And for that, I am very grateful. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I pray. And I ask the Creator to let me be sober just for today. You know, we have no control over tomorrow. Yesterday already happened. There's no changing that. I ask Him for today. Just keep me sober for today. And I may not always know what the Creator's will is, but I know what it isn't. He doesn't want me high. He doesn't want me drunk. Yeah, I'm living a new life because I'm only 895 days into it. You know, there's still a lot of things I'm figuring out. Like credit, what the hell is credit? You know? To me, that used to just mean I go get a front, you know, and just avoid them until I got to pay it back. You know, I mean, there's just different parts of my life that I'm just now realizing, because, you know, the first 40 years of childhood are pretty rough, you know, and, you know, but I'm blessed, you know, definitely blessed. I came home, worked with the Buffalo for a little while, which that's like one of the most unique jobs in the world. But my dream job was to come back to my tribe and be able to show people that this thing is definitely doable. It's a doable thing. I mean, because I promise you, if I can do it, anybody can do this thing. You know, and I just want to get that out there that, you know, I've rubbed elbows with just about everybody in this community, from the lowest of the low, you know, whatever you consider that to be. I promise you, I hung out with that person, you know, all the way up the ladder, you know, because I don't feel like I was ever like a bad guy. You know, I didn't go around and, you know, cause too much trouble, you know, but at the same time, my intentions weren't always the greatest. So, you know, I'm definitely blessed to be where I am today in this position, part of this team. I mean, in Tribal Opioid Response, man, we do a lot. You know, even if it was just one life that we impacted. But I mean, I feel like we're really out there, bro. Like, we really got to some people that people never thought possible would ever find a way out. And for that, I'm very grateful. So, you know, y'all know me. I could go on and on for days.
Yeah.
You know, I get into my war stories, and man, like these guys are telling you should write a book. You know, like,
Write a book.
This is it. This is the book.
Start writing.
but you know, I'm very grateful for where I am today. You know, I'm a grandpa. I'm a grandpa today. Who would have ever thought, you know, that the Creator thought that I deserved a granddaughter in my life? You know, and I'm very thankful for that little girl. She's changed my whole perspective on things. And, you know, like I said, I couldn't imagine doing this my way. My best thinking took me to some places that I don't wish on anybody. So with that, I would like to close up what I was saying. And I would like to hand the mic over to Miss Cassandra Frazier. She has a great story.
We're out of time now.
It's episode 2.
Part 2. That's an amazing story, Barry. Thank you for sharing your life with us.
Oh,
Excited to see what God continues to do in your walk in your recovery, where He's going to take you. Because I'm telling you, you're going places.
Just not Southern Plains.
Whew. But really, we're out of time. I'm Cassandra Frazier. I grew up in what Barry said is called God's Country,
God's country.
Thomas, Oklahoma. I'm the oldest of 7 kids. My parents divorced when I was very young. So, like he said, I don't know anything about stepbrothers, sisters, or whatever. I just know I had 2 moms and I had 2 dads. And I had a bunch of brothers and sisters. But because of that, growing up in a 2-family household, we experienced a lot of dysfunction. I don't know if anybody knows what it is to come from a dysfunctional home, but I sure do. God's still healing a lot of those wounds. But at a very young age, I started to feel, I guess, worthless, like I didn't matter. I didn't have a whole lot of attention growing up from either household. I guess because you're the oldest, there's these expectations that you should know this, you should know how to do that. And so I was left to also be a parent to my younger brothers and siblings too. So that just added a whole lot of stress to a kid. I started drinking at an early age. I remember the first time I had alcohol, I think I was 6. By the time I was 9 or 10, I can say I was an alcoholic. I used the weekends to escape, go to my mom's house where it was just, everywhere. What I didn't realize then that I do now that I'm in recovery is that she was just a baby. She was just a kid raising a kid. And so she didn't have a whole lot of experience herself as a mother, especially as a teen mother. And so a lot of that I realize now, everything I didn't want to be, I turned into. Everything I tried to avoid, I walked right into. So in both households, we experienced a lot of violence, a lot of abuse, mental, physically, emotionally. Some of those things I'm still healing from. A lot of traumas, sexual trauma, domestic violence, self-infliction, suicidal ideation, attempts over the course of my life. For a long time, I lived a double life. I put on this picture that I was, that I was good, that I was great, because that's what everybody expected of me. But on the inside, I was just like dying. I was dying. I wanted to be dead. I didn't want to be there. I started using drugs and alcohol. Well, I started using drugs. I think the first time I tried coke, I was like 14 or 15. By the end of my freshman year, I was smoking meth just about every day. And so that started my course of my meth addiction. Really what I loved then was pills. It was so easy to get pills. I played sports my whole life, so I always had a lot of injuries. And so, the Indian hospital always wants to give you pills. When I was 16, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, so I was put on pain management. So not only was I medically addicted to them, I abused them as well. And so when I was in high school, I joined the military. I joined the National Guard. I got pregnant with my son during that course. So all these hopes and admirations and dreams that I had, I just put them on hold and never attempted them no more. I got into a couple of relationships in high school that were just directed around, I guess, filling a void with a void. I seen my mom go through like lots of relationships, still being married to my my stepdad, my younger brothers and sisters' dad, and then I seen my dad do the same thing. You know, like they would get mad at their spouses and they would go see other people or vice versa. You know what I mean? So I already had like the picture that I had of a relationship already wasn't right. I've seen domestic violence from both sides, from, you know, my dad being on the bad end of it, and then my mom being like the victim and the I guess, the abuser. And so, you know, these things that I thought I never would ever experience, I put myself right into that situation. And so it wasn't. So I was in a bad relationship for about 10 years. Awesome dad, awesome father, just we weren't good for one another. And so I became not only a victim, but, you know, whenever it wasn't happening, I was antagonizing it. And so I also became the abuser as well. Really hard living that kind of life, really hard keeping those secrets, but, you know, in the closet. Not only that, you know, being an addict, being an alcoholic, putting on this face to everyone that everything's okay when really it's not okay. You know, my kids seen a lot of things that they shouldn't have seen. They seen a lot of trauma that they should have never experienced. A lot of that stuff I still hold on to. You know, I'm currently in a season of letting that go and forgiving myself. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, but I'm getting there. I would have to say, like, the first time I really had to be strong, though, like, be strong, you know, where I couldn't process what I was going through was when I considered her to be my sister, but one of my older cousins, she was killed when I was 13 years old, when I was in 7th grade. Only other, outside of my older cousins, only other person that I had to look up to during that time frame of my life. Her boyfriend killed her. She was 6 months pregnant, and so that really hit close to home. I really began partying every chance I could get, drinking mostly, you know, and with drinking, you know, you lose all inhibitions. You don't think right, you don't see things right, so I put myself in a lot of situations that could have been prevented. And, you know, when you cry for help, nobody's going to believe you because you're still doing the same thing you're doing to where all that trauma started from. So, you know, I just kept doing what I was doing, carried over into my adult life. I knew I had a problem, but it's not something you just talk about. You know, I dealt with depression a lot, grief, not in the right ways. You know, there was those feelings that you don't want to feel, that you numb them so you don't have to feel them. My thinking back then and still today, like, it's not right. I have to, what Barry said, I have to surrender my will to God every single day. But, you know, I cried out for help. In 2015, you know, was the first time I really, I was going through it that year. Everything began to fall apart. My addiction was taking over. You know, for a long time, I was able to keep up with it. But, man, here I am on the PTA board, you know, being the soccer mom, trying to go to school, working 2 jobs, and, like, I couldn't keep up with it no more. My life began to spiral fast. The abuse was getting worse. My kids, you know, they hardly ever talked, but my daughter, she told me one day, she's like, "Mom, aren't you tired?" Like, aren't you tired? And, you know, like, my kids seen a lot of things. They've experienced a lot of things, and, you know, it was never enough. It was never enough for me. And so this one day I just knew it was my last day to live. I knew it was my last day to live. And I knew that if I got in the car, that if I was behind the wheel, if I got in the car, I was behind the wheel, that I wasn't going to see another day. And so I didn't want to call a crisis unit. I didn't want to call anybody that wouldn't take me serious. So, you know, I called one of my brothers, and I was like, "Hey, like, I'm not going to call these people, but I need you to drive me somewhere. And he was like, for what? And I was like, I'm standing on the edge right now. If I don't go to this place, if I don't change what I'm doing right now, like it's going to take my life. I'm ready to take my life right now. I can't do it. And so I ended up going to the crisis unit in Clinton in 2015. I stayed there for 7 days. I wish I had enough sense then to, go into the treatment, but I didn't. I thought I was good. But as soon as I walked out those doors, there was a beer waiting for me. There was a bottle. There was a pipe loaded and some pills. And just in that setting, like, I took everything. Took everything. Went back home and just went back into the vicious cycle again. That was a pretty hard year. I lost both my jobs. Became a single parent. My addiction took everything. Took my kids away. I started leaving my kids with people that, like, my kids were with me all the time. I was a great mother. I tried to be a great mother the best I could. Everything I didn't want to be, I tried to show to them. And so during that time, I started leaving them with people, having people watch them, and just started selling drugs. Started with pills. I started with weed. I started selling weed like pretty hardcore. It was something I was accustomed to anyways. My dad used to do it. And so I was like, well, you know what I mean? Like, he did it. He was great at it. So
Family business.
I can be great at it too. And I was pretty great. I never got caught for doing any of that stuff. Like, I always had it all together. I thought I did anyways. I didn't. But
ambitious.
yeah. But yeah, that was a roller coaster year for me. It was crazy. And so I started doing that, lost my kids. Their dad got out of jail like 6 months later. Took my kids, ran, took them to another state. And just within those few months, I really, I just kept digging myself a hole. Kept digging myself a hole. It was getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Never knew I could get out of that. I thought that's what my life was going to be. After I'd given up, I was just like, well, this is what it's going to be. Like, I don't have nothing to live for anymore. Like, I might as well make the people happy. Everybody that didn't matter to me. So, I don't know. I guess a lot of that stemmed from like lack of attention. Always trying to please people, always trying to do what I thought everybody else wanted. I was going through a lot, mentally, emotionally, physically. Lost my kids. I forgot how to be a mom. I always thought about being sober. I always thought about, doing these things. And I've always known, like, throughout my life that I had, like, a sphere of influence. But the way I used that, the way I manipulated it was to get whatever I wanted from whoever I wanted. And it worked. It worked a lot. So I try to go to rehab. I did some outpatient stuff. I lied. I lied. Was I ever sober during any of that? Maybe briefly, for a month or so. But I just went in there and I faked it until I make it. I never did it for the intentions of me. I did it for everybody else. I did it for the court system. I did it to, make my dad think like I really got a good head on my shoulders, that I'm going to do something great, like it was never for me. Eventually I got my kids back in 2017. Well, it started with my youngest daughter. I got my daughter back. She went to rehab with me, and that's how I got her back. That's the only way I could see them or have any communication with them, is if I went to rehab. And so I went to rehab. We got kicked out. We were in there for, I think, 17 days. And got kicked out at 2 o'clock at night. And I think that night was the first time I really saw, like, what faith was. We're walking down the street. And, like, I'm crying. I'm bawling my eyes out. But I'm pretty sure I set myself up for that. Like, I look at it now and I set myself up for that. The situation that we were put in, I was looking for every excuse to leave, to go get high, to get high, to lose myself, because the emotions that I was going through, the things that I had to face, it was really hard. I didn't want to face them. But my daughter sat me down and she was like, "What's wrong with you?" She's like, "What's wrong with you, mama?" And like, she grabbed my face and she's like, this whole time, you know, I'm like just crying, and I'm so disappointed in myself. I'm so disappointed that I let my emotions take over me. And she just looks at me and she was like, "But it's going to be okay. Mom, I love you." And the first, you know, I've been in church my whole life. Well, off and on my whole life. I've tried like many different like religions, many like it's crazy. So like I've been like, I never had a relationship with God. I never knew who God was, but I've always known what the book was. I've always known what, you know, like the basis around it, but I never knew what faith was. And she looked at me like with such joy in her face, and like I seen so much faith in her. And she was like, "It's going to be okay, Mama." Like, she grabbed my cheeks and she was like, "You know why? Because Jesus loves you." And I was like, "Who the heck is this Jesus?" Like, who is this person? And I'm and I'm sitting on, and this was like maybe 5-10 minutes after I stepped in the hole and broke my ankle. And I'm sitting on the ground. I'm sitting on the ground and I'm crying, and, you know, she's telling me this, and I'm like, "Who is this person? Like, who are you? I don't know who you are." Well, anyways, we ended up walking a few more miles that night. These homeless people stopped and was like, "Baby doll, are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm fine." They're like, "You don't look okay. You're carrying your stuff. You got your daughter with you on the south side. Like, you are not okay." And so, like, I had a few dollars I had maybe like $6 or $7, and they're like, "We don't have a bunch, but this is what." And like, they pulled out a handful of change. It was like $1.67, I think. They're like, "Take this and get your daughter something to eat." So my dad ended up coming to get me that night. And like, the whole time we're walking though, all I'm thinking of is the sack that I got stashed in the radio that's in his garage that I'm ready to hit once I get home. Not to mention, when I get to the hospital, they gave me pain pills. And so, like, you know, it's just crazy how I thought I wanted help. I did want help, but I didn't want it for the right reasons, what all that led into. And so I tried for a little bit after that. I stayed, you know, I smoked that night when I got home that day. Smoked, you know, I did what I was gonna do, and I tried to stay sober. Like, I really did. I went through the outpatient classes. I did it all, but I think it lasted maybe a month and a half, 2 months. And so I was like, yeah, forget this. Went partied one night, and like, as soon as I started drinking, like, everything came back in tenfold. Started popping pills, picked up the needle, went and got some coke, and it was just like, it was gone. It was gone. I was gone. And I remember that day so vague. Like, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember coming home that morning, my dad's standing out the door. And this is really stupid. This is really stupid, but he was like, "I missed work today because of you." He was like, "I really hope you know what you're doing." And he was like, "And because of that," he was like, "you get to call my work and you get to tell them why I didn't go to work." And so I'm like,
call there.
and so I'm sitting there at his door. I'm sitting there at his front door, because he's not opening the door for me. He told my daughter, "Don't you open that door for your mother until I get done talking to her." And so I'm sitting there at this door, and he was, and I start to try to fake cry, but I'm like freaking gone. Like, I can't do anything.
Splashing water in your eyes.
And I'm like, he was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Look at me." And so,
smiling.
Oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing though. He was like, "You tell them why I miss work. You tell them why I miss work." And so I tell him why I missed work. So embarrassing. But that didn't stop. It just got worse. You know, I started moving dope. Started moving lots of dope. Started moving lots of cash. Started messing with guns. And so it was just like, in a blink of an eye. You know, I was really in it, and before I knew it, you know, my other two kids wanted to come back and live with me. They wanted to come home, and so I hadn't, like, their dad couldn't take care of them where they were at. They had to move, and so I had no other choice but to you know, let them come home. And I wanted them to come home, but I didn't embrace them like I should have. And so rather than, you know, embracing them and being this mom that I could have been, you know, I forgot everything. Everything just went out the door. I started, oh my gosh, it's like they started going with me on runs, like because I didn't have a babysitter for them. You know what I mean? That's how much that's how much I put them in at risk. They started going with me on these runs to pick up whatever it was that I needed. They were missing school. I missed their birthday parties. I missed their birthdays. I missed out on a whole lot. I just really got in too deep and I couldn't get out. And so that happened for like the next 8 or 9 months. And by then, you know, I already picked up the needle. Then I started, you know, the pills weren't enough for me anymore. The heroin, like the pills weren't enough. And so I started smoking heroin. That didn't become enough, you know. So I started shooting it. But I couldn't do one thing without the other. So I was always drinking. I was always drinking, or I was always, you know, smoking meth with it. Like I went for that roller coaster effect, and I always counted it as a blessing and a curse, because I tried to get so messed up that it would turn me away from it. I tried to do that, and like it never worked for me. And so, you know, I went on for like the next 8 months doing that. I thought I had control. I thought I had control over it. I did not. I was losing money. I was losing time. I was losing kids. My kids, I don't know how many cars I went through that year. I don't know how many times I shouldn't have been, you know what I mean? Like I should have been dead a long time ago. And I always tell people, like, I hear people say, I don't know where I'd been, you know, I don't know where I'd be at, but I know where I would be at. I was living in hell. Like I was already like walking dead. And so my only other option was like really to be cut off from life, 6 feet under, you know, come up missing, or just continue, you know, just not even existing, just, you know, just being there. And so, you know, I got really mad one day. You know, I was so excited. I was so excited. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be it. I'm about to, you know, like I'm about to get so far out there. You know, I'm gonna have like a really good high, and you know, so I get it ready, shoot it up, and like I've never been so mad in my life. Like it did not do anything for me. It did not do anything. And so I got really angry, and I was like, why is this happening to me? And before I knew it, I found myself kneeled down in my bedroom floor, like just crying. I had like a huge puddle of tears in front of me. And I just remember praying, and I was like, God, if you're real, like you have to save me from myself, because I know where I'm going and I don't want to be there. I don't know. I had enough sense in that prayer to like, you got to take me out of the situation. I can't do this no more. Like, I don't want to be this person. I don't want to be this woman. I don't want to be this child, whatever it is that I am. I don't want to be no more. And so, you know, I remember, crazy. I remember praying to go to jail. Like, you got to take me out. You got to put me in jail. Like, something has to happen. You got to put me in jail. And I'm so blessed that I never, ever got in trouble for any of the other things that I'd done. And so I ended up getting pulled over like 3 days later for a taillight being out. Well, when I got pulled over, I had a sawed-off shotgun. And there was like freaking bullets all over my stupid truck. It was crazy. Like, what the heck? And I knew that night, though, I got pulled over. I was like, man, this can't be good. Like, this can't be good. Like, I knew my taillight was out, and I still like went forth and did it. You know what I mean? Like, I still went forth. And so I tried to be really mad for a long time. Like, stupid cops.
Doing his job.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, there was 3 of us that night, and there was a woman that we were giving a ride to, and like I even went as far as like, oh man, the gun was hers. She brought it with her. You know, like I stuck with that for like a cool minute, and then like I was like, no, like I ended up telling the truth, and then I was like, everything was mine. Like everything was mine. She did not know anything what was going on, and so like she ended up not getting in trouble. The other person didn't get in trouble, and it was when I was sitting in jail that I realized like God reminded me like you prayed for this, and so like my heart began to change. Like I started feeling these crazy emotions, compassion, I guess, is what it was. You know what I mean? Like coming from everything that I experienced and witnessed growing up, you know, like I began to see things in a different light. I began to see things in a different light. I began to feel, I guess, what is that? Empathy, sympathy for people. People that I never even would have like gave the time of day to unless, you know, I was wanting something from them or unless I knew I could get something from them. And so, like, I really began, like, a strong prayer life then. I didn't pray a whole lot, just because my dad's wife growing up, she really forced religion on us. She really forced us in all kinds of churches and all different kinds of ways. And so I just kind of had a bad view on what religion was and I guess who God was. And so I didn't spend a whole lot of time developing a relationship with them. But it wasn't until I went to county and I was like, you answered my prayers. And because you answered my prayers, I'll devote my life to you. And so I began studying, I began praying. I just began to like really like ask questions and I guess accept grace, you know, accept grace and show grace to others. I realized a lot of my problems that they were self-inflicted. You know, a lot of them could have been avoided. I was just paying the consequences for my actions, so I couldn't be mad at anybody else but myself. And then, forgiveness comes along. Like, he's forgiven me for everything I've ever done. Why can't I forgive myself? And so I soon realized that the only hindrance in me going forward was myself. And so I just really, I mean, over the last couple of years, especially I would say like this last 6 months, I've really been doing a lot of self-seeking and searching, trying to get right with my relationship with myself. If I can be good with me, you know, I can be good with those outside of me. And so, and in that, you know, my relationship with God has gotten so much stronger. But I don't really like to dwell on my past and remember a lot of things that I've been through or went through because I remember them, you know, I don't forget. But God's brought me out of that. You know, he's continued to show me like other avenues, other ways to cope. You know, I lost my kids for a long time. I went to prison in 2018, you know, from that jail sentence that I was in. I ended up signing a 5-year sentence, which I was I was blessed with. Like, I had 3 counties where I had 3 charges in, and they all got ran concurrent. And so I discharged my time in 2020. When I was in prison, though, you know, I went through some addiction classes. I went through, I did a lot of self-help, victims impact, you know, just a plethora of things to better myself, to better my family, to better who I am. I got involved in ministry. I'd never, ever thought that was something that was going to be a part of my life. I'm like, I never, ever thought that was going to be something. You know, I began teaching classes in there over the fruits of the Spirit. And the first class that I had to teach over was faith. And I was like, hey, like, this is pretty cool. Like, this is pretty cool, you know? And so, you know, I began praying to God, like, I want to have childlike faith because, like, God, you don't overlook that. You don't overlook that. And so, you know, I really think he's blessed me with the gift of faith. And I really do trust and believe in what his word says and who he says I am. Once I was released, when I was in prison, I was able to go to work release. And so I started saving my money. So by the time I was released, I had most of my fines paid off. I got my license back. I went to transitional living, which I swear by transitional living. Like, it saved my life. I could have went anywhere, but I went to transitional living. And I'm so glad that I did, because if I would have went back to the place that if I would have went back home, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Like, I was not that strong. My mind was not that strong. And so I went to transitional living where I became an ordained minister. I got my CDL. I was there for a year and a half before TOR reached out to me and was like, "We need you." And I was like, "No, I'm going to do this on my own." I really did. That's what I was like. I'm going to do this on my own. I was like, I could get these certifications on my own. But, like God has opened like many avenues for me since I changed my life, since my heart's changed. I worked for like the city of Comanche for off and on for like almost the 2 years I was there. Like, I have a freaking felony. I had several felonies. I had 3 felonies. And so, like, who gets a city job? Nobody gets a city job, like, with a record like that. And so I was fortunate enough to, like, get great jobs when I was down there. And so, I began to really look into getting my charges expunged. So out of the 7 charges I have 4 of them expunged. After December, I can file to get the last 3 expunged, and then I can start my pardon paperwork. So my background and my criminal history won't be held against me. But I moved up here in last March, and it's just really opened like the doors for everything great to happen. I got my kids back in 2020, so not only am I like raising my kids, I'm raising like 3 of my brother's kids too. And so it's just been opportunity after opportunity to allow God's light to shine through me. And when I was in prison, we had this hope conference, and I was like, man, God, like I want to do that. I want to bring hope back into families. I want to bring hope back into the lives of women and men who think that this is what they have to look forward to. Like, because it's not. Like, I know it's not. I guess I already had my mind made up, that's not what I wanted to. That's not what I wanted to be. I wanted to break those curses for my family, off my kids. Like my kids experienced way too much, and how, like, it's not fair to their kids to have to go through that. So I just really been healing so that they don't have to see repeat any of those patterns that that I thought was correct, that I thought was right. I don't know. I forgot where I was at. I lose track. Look that way. But so fast forward to today. I'm in the ministry. I can probably say full time. I'm in full time ministry. Not only do I work, and I enjoy my kids whenever the opportunity comes. Still working on finding balance. Still working on balance, and so God's just amazing. You know what I mean? Like, I can't sit here and like not give him any kind of credit for it, because I couldn't have done this all on my own. I had a brief relapse last year. Not with drugs, but with alcohol. At some point, I quit identifying myself as an alcoholic, and started putting in my mind that, like, I can drink a glass of wine and it's gonna be okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be all right. And really, it wasn't all right. It wasn't all right. It wasn't before too long. I was home thinking, like, man, where can I send my kids for the weekend? Who's gonna watch 6 kids so I can sit back and enjoy this glass of wine without guilt? It's crazy. Like, I thought about that, and those thoughts were they were starting to consume me. I never brought it into my house, though. I never allowed it into my house, into my new life. I'm very fortunate enough that, God gave me a vision, and he showed me, like, if I continue to drink, this is what it's going to look like in 4 years. He said, I've done so much in your life in these 4 years, but if you continue to leave this in your life, this is what it's going to look like 4 years away. And it was like 20 times worse than it was before I got sober, and I was just like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do that. I've come so far. And so, like, today I have 333 days sober. Tomorrow I'll have 11 months sober, so that's pretty exciting for me, because I am an alcoholic. That's where my addiction started, with alcohol. That's just a little bit of my story. I always I gotta, for a while I felt so much guilt for that relapse, but I have to share that with people, because whenever you stop identifying yourself as what it is, or what it is that you struggle with, you're not being honest with yourself. You're not being honest with the people around you, with the people that you love, and that's just a door open for other things to come in. And so, just recently I've been sharing that with our community, and I've had a lot of thank yous for that, because look at him, look at me. Like, you could never tell that addiction once ruled our lives. You know what I mean? Like, you can't tell. Maybe like some scars or something, but like, you can't tell. And people tell me that all the time. I never even knew this about you. And I'm like, but it's important that we share our stories, and that we let them know what, that there is a struggle, and that there is a thing, and that there is help. And so, yeah, that's just, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna keep rambling.
Well, that is an amazing story, though.
Yours is amazing.
Thank you for being honest about your relapse. I mean, I know that's. I have using dreams all the time, and I wake up out of my sleep like, oh, there goes all them days. Like,
Oh no.
yeah, so I can't even. I mean, but it does happen, and you did bounce back. So, thank you for being honest. I guess we're going to wrap it up now.
Yeah, I mean, unless you have any like words of wisdom for anybody that wants to, that's starting to think about recovery, or even for the family members of the ones that are suffering from addiction. So, like, what would you say to them, or how to bring up the conversation, or anything like that? What would your guys' words be?
Well, I know, we get these calls, we get these questions all the time. I remember when we were in Clinton, this grandmother came up and asked if my grandkid comes home and I can't get him to wake up, can I Narcan him? And I'm just like, no, like, that's probably, because all they do is sleep, but I know with me, I don't get on the person about, because I understand what they're going through, or I get a good picture of, what's actually going on mentally, when I get a chance to talk to somebody, I tell them about my story. I tell them how I've benefited from making this decision. And, because there is a lot of stigma, there is a lot of, shame and guilt that goes into having this conversation, because you live such a lie that when you tell the truth about one part of it, it makes a whole lot of, basically everything you've been living up to becomes a lie. So, to initiate this conversation, I tell them about the benefits. It's nothing money can buy. If there's nothing nobody can do or say that's going to convince me that drugs and alcohol is a way to live, because I've tried it. Believe me, every avenue possible, any combination that you can think of, I tried it. And I always ended up in the same place. So being able to be on this side, it's definitely a process. They say, that's one thing that you always hear, trust the process. It's when people think that, I don't know what it is about, like, whenever I was out there, I thought I was smarter than everybody. Like, I don't know what it is about that whole concept. Like, if someone's sitting there, like I'd be sitting there high as hell, and the more I played it off, the more obvious it became. So, but just starting the conversation is, like you want them to realize that relationship that you used to have before drugs and alcohol took over. You want them to remember what it used to be like, what they were like before drugs and alcohol took over. You want them to be aware that they can't hide it anymore. You want them to be aware that it's affecting the whole household. It's affecting the whole community. You let them know that they don't have to live that way. Whatever it is, that's bothering them, that makes them feel like that's the only outlet, I promise you there is another way. There is a solution. And the easy part is getting high and getting drunk. That's the easy part. Actually being able to stay sober and to keep my sobriety is going to take some work. But the freedom that I have today is unmatched by anything that I've experienced in the drug and alcohol world. Like, I can't even begin to tell you the relief that I have from being able to work a 12-step program. The benefits of people actually being able to rely on me. I mean, I didn't have that for years. Actually have my own place. I mean, actually have my kids and being able to help people that have the same disease I have. I got empathy for a lot of those people because nobody, I would say sympathy, but nobody wants you to feel sorry for them. So my words of encouragement would be, what I said earlier, let the Creator do for you what you can't do for yourself. I may not know what His will is, but I know what it isn't. And whenever I get in that mindset that that it's something that I can't handle, I've always been able to hit my knees and give it up to the Creator, because without Him being in my life, none of this would be possible. So, I mean, I believe that, if we just keep on with this message, if we just keep getting the awareness out there that there are people who do care about, these people that a lot of people have thrown away, consider gone, consider whatever label they want to put on them. I walked that walk, and by God's grace, I came out of it. So, is there anything that you would like to share about what he just asked?
What'd you ask? I'm just kidding.
Do you have any words of encouragement?
Yes, I have some words of encouragement.
And how would you initiate this conversation?
Oh, man. You really just got to love the person right where they're at, the individual, whoever it may be, your son, your daughter, your niece, your nephew, your grandkid. You just have to love them right where you're at. There's nothing that we can do to convince somebody that, what's good for them until they come to this point in their lives that where they're at the end of themselves is when, they're going to take that step. So you just really have to love them where they're at. That's something I've learned in my journey, dealing with, my family members and close friends that are addicts. Just love them right where they're at, because there was people that loved me right where I was at. They love me, and they still love me today, And so I think just, not being judgmental, understanding that it is just a symptom of a disease, of a sickness. And really just be honest. Like, those that are looking, be honest with yourself. Because the day you stop being honest with yourself is the day that your world is going to start to crumble. And you don't want to save yourself the hurt. Just be honest with yourself, heal, recover, move forward, and continue to do it as many times as it takes. but just continue to heal. Continue to stand up. If you fall, get back down. Don't give up. That's not the last. It's not the last straw. It's you got God's love. God's love and His grace is sufficient. And so you just be accepting. Forgive yourself. Move forward. Yeah.
It was pretty good. I like what you said there. Love them where they're at. That's definitely true. Is there anything anybody else would like to add before we wrap this thing up?
I just add, just like I said, being honest with yourself and coming forth, and just being honest and loving, and just come back. We're here, so don't be afraid, and you're not alone.
For sure. For sure. Well, I guess this concludes the last or the first.
The
first.
first.
The first.
The first, but not the last.
But not the last.
What did Bob say? Not my first or my last.
All the in between.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely been a pleasure. Hopefully we get a little bit of understanding of where we're at and what to say. And I guess this concludes
Reach out to us.
our message.
You're not alone.
TOR on 3.
Okay.
All right.
TOR on 3. 1, 2, 3.
TOR.
TOR.
What if? What if?
Oh. Can we do that again?
A redo?
Yeah.